What's up, tricksters, and welcome to the second part of my ultimate Tejo guide presented by your favorite all-time Radiant coach, Charlatano Papito! If you didn't see my previous video about the most important Tejo mechanics, interactions, and combos, I highly recommend you to watch it after this one. Today I'm going to teach you how to solo hard carry every ranked game with this agent, and now you might be asking yourself, why should I watch this guide when there's plenty of others? Well, other coaches and content creators focus way too much on esports and some perfect ranked environment where all of your teammates are communicating and playing together. While that is how Valorant should be played, it is unrealistic, because those type of games you will get once in a blue moon, even in Radiant. So, without any further ado, let me show you how you should play this agent in ranked SoloQ in order to carry your boosted bonobo teammates. Let's first start with the attacker's side. On attack, you generally want to prioritize buying his drone over the stun, when you don't have enough credits for both, because it is far more useful ability. You can gather information for your team, while potentially suppressing enemies from using their utility, so they cannot stop your executes. In the first round, you have 4 buy options based on which map you're playing and which bomb set you're executing. If we are playing on claustrophobic maps, we want to purchase Classic, Light Shield, and Drone. If we are playing maps with a lot of medium-range corridors, we should purchase Ghost with a Drone. If you're playing on extremely long-range maps such as Breeze, his utility is less useful, so you can simply play with a Sheriff and his signature ability. Now on attack, your number one priority is making sure that none of your teammates are dying in the main areas of the map. Whenever you notice that enemies like to play a bit more aggressive and they're consistently killing your teammates before you even have a chance to execute some bomb site, push them back with either special delivery or guided salvo. For an example, if you're executing a set of bind, you can place 1 rocket for lamps and 1 rocket to clear the top of the truck. Then we can use our stun for lamps and our drone to pressure enemies on sight, while potentially suppressing them from using their stalling utility or denying their sentinels utility such as Cypher Trip Wires. Same concept we can use in any other area of any map. Another example, you're executing A set or B set of split. You can use your stun to deny enemies early peek in the main areas. Then we can use our drone to scout for enemies on the bomb site, reveal and suppress them. After that, we can simply use guided salvo based on information that we've gathered and execute the site together with our team. Generally speaking, you really want to save stealth drone to reveal and suppress enemies on the bomb sites, while you should be using special delivery or guided salvo to pressure enemies backwards and make your teammates stay alive. Anyways, your rockets are going to reset after 40 seconds, so you might have like 1 or 2 more during that specific round. But what if enemies are not fighting for main areas and you're able to reach the choke points with all of your abilities in the pocket? Well, there are 3 scenarios based on which you should properly use your utility. Scenario numero uno. Your teammates are playing slow or they are way too passive and they're scared to push into bomb sites. You should always first use your drone to scout for enemies and gather information. Once you reveal or suppress enemies, you have multiple options based on information that you've gathered. If revealed enemies are stuck in some corner and you're smoked off, first use special delivery to stun them and then quickly bombard them for an easy kill with 2 separated rockets that should cover a large area of that location. Also, in this situation, it would be a good habit to spam that corner a bit through the smoke, in order to apply potential slow damage onto enemies if they're trying to escape. Maybe after that kill, your teammates are still not going to push into bomb site, but at least we made numbers advantage that we can use in some other way to win that specific round. If you have clear vision onto enemies that are stuck in some corner, you don't need to use your stun, you can simply bombard them and take an easy kill as they're running away in a panic mode. Now, if enemies are not stuck in any corner, but rather they're playing behind or inside some cover, you should always flush those enemies with guided salvo and put them in some disadvantageous position. For an example, if an enemy is playing at the back set of bind, we can place these 2 projectiles to make him move towards left side, where he is going to be fully exposed and an easy kill for our team. Even if he moves behind this box, you can still kill him with a spam, or as we're closing the gap with that enemy, use your stun and delete him. This same concept you can use on any location where there are only 2 directions in which an enemy can move. For an example, an enemy is playing at the C backside of Lotus. Place 2 rockets on the right side and make that enemy move left, where he is going to be fully exposed. As soon as you fire these 2 projectiles, apply the stun on the left side and voila! Again, an easy kill. Even if you use your stun for waterfall or pillar, that enemy at the backside is going to be under a lot of pressure and a potential easy kill for your team. Now, obviously, you shouldn't always use all of your utility just to kill one enemy on the bomb site. Let's say, for an example, one enemy is playing at the A backside of Pearl, and one enemy is holding you from Art. We should use one rocket to bombard the Art smoke so that the enemy cannot support his teammate on the bomb site. Then we use one rocket for the backside combined with a gamble stun, either left or right. No matter if we made the right gamble, we are definitely going to flush that enemy at the backside and put him in some disadvantage where his teammates cannot support him. So most of the times you want to use guided salvo first and then your stun to cover as many different positions where enemies can play on the bomb site. Now what if enemies have some kind of a sentinel that is guarding site with his utility? If you suppress that sentinel, nothing changes, because his utility is going to be down for 7 seconds, which is plenty enough time to perform any execute. But if you didn't reveal or suppress that sentinel, but you revealed his setup, we should always first destroy sentinel's utility before doing anything else. In the perfect world, other agents such as Sova and Raze should be destroying that sentinel's utility, which you revealed. But if they don't care or they cannot do it, then you should always use your guided salvo to destroy it yourself. And when you're using rockets in this way, you need to be very careful, super efficient and mega precise, because you don't want to ruin the execute of your allies. For an example, this is a very standard Cypher setup in Garage and on Seaside of Haven. If you place 2 of your rockets here and here, they can potentially damage and F up your teammates as we are splitting Seaside. But if we place rockets on the opposite ends, it is much better and even more efficient. Because you're not only destroying Cypher trips, but you're also clearing these 2 corners where enemies can potentially play at that moment of time. If you can destroy multiple setups with only one projectile, do it and use your second projectile to pressure enemies. Now, another good thing that you should always do with Tejo, if your teammates like to play slow or they default a lot, is destroying sentinel setups as soon as the round starts. For an example, on A set of Bind, if Cypher is always placing his trips in the same way, you can instantly use guided salvo to destroy them, or you can first use your drone to reveal them and then destroy them. This will put enormous amount of pressure onto enemies, and if your team decides to hit the A site, we don't need to worry about the Cypher setup. Just be really careful, because good Cypher players will always reset his trips before you destroy them. Anyways, your guided salvo is going to be recharged after 40 seconds, so you can potentially have it again during an actual execute. Which is a great tip when you have Tejo in your team. Playing a bit slower and resetting your executes is a really good on attacker side with this agent. You can always use your rockets to take some initial space or to destroy enemy setups immediately, cut the noise for 40 seconds to reset this ability, and then perform an actual execute. Moving on to scenario numero dos. Your teammates on attack are super aggressive and you don't have enough time to use your drone to scout for enemies before executes. In this situation, you need to use your utility based on your game knowledge and based on what happened in the previous rounds. If enemies are way too repetitive on defense, simply bombard the positions which they were previously playing and try to mainly deny those areas of the map with guided salvo and special delivery. Also, pay attention on enemy sentinel setups from the previous rounds, because you will have to bomb them before your teammates start moving in. If you don't have any info about enemies, you will have to pressure the most common locations where players like to position on a specific site, or deny the most common place, once again before your teammates even make one step outside of the choke points. That is why we will have to develop some default Tejo setups that you want to do in these situations for every single site and map in Valorant. I cannot cover all of these setups in this video because it would be 10 hours long, but I'm going to cover every single default setup in the Tejo ranked playbook on my Discord server. So if you want to get this playbook, make sure to join my Discord server for private coaching, and also remember to tune into my daily Twitch streams where I'll be making it live. Now remember that your highest priority on the attacker side is to always support your most aggressive teammates or teammates that have the highest chances of dying, and to play on the refrag potential with them. So if you're using your drone as your teammates are already entering the site, drone is simply useless because your teammates are already the drones. In this situation, it is much better if you're moving in together with them, and instead of the drone, you're using stun and rockets to support both yourself and your allies, while you're keeping a proper distance with them in order to fight enemies together. Now the final, scenario numero 3. You have ultimate on the attacker's side. You only need to remember a few things when using Tejo's ultimate. Always use it before special delivery and guided salvo, because there is a 3 seconds delay before the bombs start falling down. Then you can use guided salvo combined with special delivery in order to clear other positions on the bomb site. With ultimate, you always want to cover the largest and the most common areas on the specific site, or to kill enemies that are stuck in certain locations, such as B generator on Fracture. You never want to flush enemies from the bomb sites, but instead you want to put them in some kind of a disadvantage and kill them. So if enemies are stuck at the B backside of bind, it is much better to place your ultimate from CT towards elbow. Then we can place these 2 rockets to deny their escape routes and use our stun to kill enemies that are stuck in this elbow location. Or for an example, if an enemy is playing in this drop location while you're executing a set of Fracture, you can use this ultimate from dish towards site. That enemy will have no other option but to run towards your team for a certain death. Finally, just make sure that your ultimate is never placed in a path of your team's execute, because you don't wanna F up your teammates. So let me showcase you all of this in one very simple example where we are executing a set of Lotus. At the start of this execute, we used the drone and revealed 1 enemy at the backside and 1 enemy in the drop. First, we're going to use ultimate that covers the whole backside, but the starting location is going to be from the tower, so that enemy at the backside can't run away. Then we're going to use guided salvo on these 2 locations in combination with this stun. This utility combo covers every location where enemies can play on the bomb site. They're put in a really bad positions and they cannot run away from a fight. That works in our favor. This same logic you should apply in any area on every single map. So let's test what you've learned thus far with a short quiz. You are executing C set of Haven, and your drone revealed that 1 enemy is at the backside while another enemy is behind plat. How should your execute look like? While you're writing your answers down in the comments, I'd appreciate if you hit that subscribe button right now and leave a like, because you definitely don't want to miss my Radiant Ranked educational series with Tejo. If your answer looks like this, it is correct, because both of these enemies are cooked and you're officially the Gordon Ramsay of Valorant. Now in the post plants, every piece of Tejo's utility is extremely useful for any situation, and you can deny enemy spike defusal for enormous amount of time. With drone, you can deny their utility usage or reveal and spam them through smokes and penetratable objects. With guided salvo, you can deny defuse or put enemies into some fights that work in your favor, so make sure to pay attention on the reset time of this ability. And you can also combine your stun with the guided salvo to take some free kills, so it is going to be very beneficial learning some lineups for this ability. But what if you have your ultimate? Well, use it if it is going to guarantee you winning a round when you're in either numbers or economy disadvantage. The worst thing that you can do in Valorant is saving your ultimate when you're not 100% certain if you're going to win a specific round. Now is the time to move on to defender side with Tejo. On defense, you generally want to prioritize buying his stun over the drone when you don't have enough credits for both, because it is a bit more useful defensive ability. But also, stealth drone is generally a bit stronger and more versatile ability, because even on defense, you can take early information for your team, you can reveal and suppress enemies during executes, and obviously it is a really good ability for retakes. Now in the first round, you have 4 buy options based on which map you're playing and which bomb set you're defending. If you're playing on claustrophobic maps, you always want to purchase Classic, Light Shield and Special Delivery, or Classic Regen Shield and you're just playing with Guided Salvo, which is plenty enough. But on these maps, you can also play Classic Light Shield and Shorty strategy, which is a really powerful strat with Tejo. So for an example, you're defending B window on bind. You drop shorty on the left side and start the round by holding this angle with a classic pistol. With classic, you're simply revealing and baiting enemies to push you, as well as destroying their recon abilities such as raise boombot. Then you switch on to shorty, and when enemies are at the beginning of this choke point, you split them apart and pressure them with guided salvo. They are going to run directly into your shotgun, and voila! Now you can regroup with your teammates on the bomb site while you made a numbers advantage for your team. Now, if you're playing on maps with a lot of medium range corridors, you should purchase Ghost with a stun, but in all of these situations, even stealth drone might be very useful. And if you're playing on extremely long range maps such as Breeze, once again you can simply play with the Sheriff and his signature ability. Now, same as on attack, on defense there are 3 scenarios that are going to repeat for you most of the time. Scenario numero uno: your allies are playing like aggressive gorillas and you think they're going to end up fighting some enemies, or maybe they're going to die. Long story short, support them with guided salvo and special delivery. So for an example, your teammates want to take mid control of Haven. We start this round on the B site, use special delivery for window and our rockets for the bottom mid. With this utility combo and positioning, we can safely take mid area of the map, and we didn't waste that much utility because guided salvo is anyways going to reset after 40 seconds. Then for an example, your Reyna is dying for the 5th round in a row because she's dry peeking enemies in B main on split. In that case, simply use guided salvo for these 2 positions, and we can save our stun to fight enemies together with our Reyna if enemies are actually in this area of the map. One huge perk of playing Tejo on defense is that sometimes, even if you're not playing on the bomb set where your teammates are going for an aggressive play, you can still support them with guided salvo because his iPad has a huge range. So if you're playing in A lamps on bind, you can still support your teammates that are doing some stupid dry peek in the B short area of that map. And finally, you can use your aggressive teammates as a recon tool to kill enemies. For an example, your Reyna is holding an off angle in Ascent B main like this. As soon as Reyna gets an initial contact with enemies, you can use this stun lineup, bomb them with guided salvo and take some free kills together with your Reyna. But you can also use this combo from Speedway and with some high penetration weapons kill enemies through this wall. And the best thing is, you didn't even fight a single enemy in some 50-50 gunfight, while you can potentially get more than 1 kill. Scenario numero dos. You want to play like an aggressive gorilla and to potentially deny some space from enemies or to get some kills in the main areas. This is more than a good playstyle because every Tejo's utility is amazing for aggressive plays and killing enemies in close quarters, but this is something that you should never do if enemies are playing an eco round on attacker's side. Now we're going to assume that your teammates won't give you any utility and they don't want to play with you, so you're doing solo aggression. In this case, there are 3 utility combos that you can perform. First, you can stun enemies and then bomb them with guided salvo. You can also use guided salvo to put enemies in some unfavorable positions and then stun them to take some free kills. But you can also choose a perfect location and timing to use only one of these abilities in order to make enemies panic. And then when they are running away from your utility, P them and take an easy kill. Now, what is more important in these scenarios is how you're gathering early information and where do you use Tejo's utility. You always want to gather this info in some safe way, where you're not immediately committing yourself into 50-50 gunfights, either by doing some small jiggle pick, jump spotting enemies, or holding some tight angles such as this one. In this example on Lotus, you can simply use 2 projectiles to put enemies in the middle of this choke point, and then stun them for an easy kill. Similar play you can do in A short of bind. First, jump spot your enemies to reveal them, use 2 rockets left and right, and then use stun in the middle for an aggressive peek. But as I've already mentioned, the utility placement really depends on how a specific area is built. For an example, in A main of Ascent, you can first jiggle pick enemies to gather information and then wait for them to start picking up the orb. As soon as you get the audio cue, you can bounce your stun and then top it off with guided salvo. Now, if enemies are not picking up the orb, you can wait for them to be in this A main corridor, stun them, and once again bomb them with these projectiles. Basically, you want enemies to be in areas where they cannot escape your guided salvo, or where you can easily pick them together with your utility. Scenario numero 3, and this is the most important one. You are playing passive and you're just guarding the choke points and the bomb sites. In these situations, you have multiple options how you can delay enemy executes and take some kills. If you hear that enemies are executing bomb site, maybe you hear enemy Sova using his drone, you can activate your own drone to suppress enemies and deny their execute for 7 seconds. If they still decide to run into bomb site, you can simply use your stun and guided salvo at the choke point to split them apart and potentially get some free kills. Now, if you know exactly where enemy dive agents like to go during an execute, so for an example, enemy Jet is always dashing in the middle of A site on Pearl, use your stun on Jet and then these 2 rockets in order to kill her and to pressure enemies that are executing the bomb site. Also, when enemies are way too repetitive, you can pre-place your guided salvo on these locations and activate it as soon as you hear enemy Jet dashing in. In this way, you will save your stun while completely splitting enemy Jet from her teammates and potentially killing her with just your signature ability. Now, if you don't know how enemies are going to execute some bomb site, simply use your special delivery and guided salvo to put enemies in some disadvantageous positions. For an example, on B site of Fracture, you can bomb these 2 locations so that enemies cannot run into sight, and they will be wide open where you can kill them from multiple different angles. But remember that with Tejo, you should mainly try to kill enemies in the choke points and in some narrow locations. So you need to decide based on yours and enemies' economy and ultimate status whether or not you want to play passive or aggressive in a specific round. Now, when it comes to retakes, you're basically on attacker's side and you follow the same logic that I've previously explained on attack. If you have stealth drone and your teammates are playing slow, first use this ability to scout for enemies and then pressure them with everything else. If your teammates are playing way too aggressive, immediately support them with special delivery and guided salvo on the most common post-plant locations, while we can use our stealth drone later to pressure enemies or to deny their post-plant utility. But what about his ultimate, charlatan? You can either save it for retakes or use it to completely demolish enemy executes. During retakes, the best idea is to split enemies apart and be really careful where and in which direction you use it, because you don't want to bomb your whole team. For an example, if you're retaking B set of Sunset, this is the best utility combo to pressure enemies and clear the whole site. Your ultimate should always be used first, and it should go from main towards backside, so that enemies cannot run away if they're stuck on site. And if you're using it to stop the enemy executes, the best idea is to use it behind the enemies at the choke points and create some kind of a setup like this. With this setup, enemies are forced to move forward where you can easily destroy them with guided salvo and special delivery. As you can see, he's a really strong agent on both attackers and defenders side, but in order to solo carry ranked games with Tejo, you need to have high levels of game knowledge and overall awareness. Because all of his abilities have a huge delay before they explode, so you need to position them perfectly and hit the perfect timings to deploy them. That is why Tejo is an A-tier agent in ranked and not a pick for low elo players that are in between Iron 1 and Diamond 3. But in pro play or in medium and high elo lobbies, he is definitely a very strong pick, potentially even an S-tier agent. Because obviously in those lobbies, players have a bit higher skill levels and you can combine his utility with your teammates into some very strong combos that I've explained in my previous Tejo guide. Now, there are many other Tejo tips, tricks and strategies that you can apply in your ranked games, but I'll be teaching you those tactics in my future Radiant guides. So if you don't want to miss them, make sure to subscribe and I'll see you, my dear tricksters, in the next video.